Guten Abend, ich begrüße Sie. Now, I made a video about GBSS and PBC boys' involvement in politics in Grenada, and a lot of people got a little bit bent out of shape. Some almost blew a gasket, calling my bro, giving him a hard time. Then he calls me and gives me a hard time. But I want you to understand that what I said was not, again, I'm going to say it, was not some sort of collective castigation of GBSS and PBC boys. For crying out loud, some of my best friends are GBSS and PBC boys. But if we are being honest, and if we understand the development of the political history of Grenada, we would understand, especially in its foundational sense, that GBSS and PBC boys, because they were so politically active, okay? Especially in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you know what I'm saying? They had a foundational impact on the politics, the political parties, the offshoot of political parties in Grenada. Now, that is a fact. So a lot of what was done politically in that time period, again, which I said was foundational to the politics, was instrumental in determining the politics that followed. And to this day, because of the impact on the collective psychology of the people who were involved, these things have far-reaching consequences that resonate in this year time. And I believe that the GBSS and PBC boys who are foundational to the politics of Grenada would agree with me if they're being intellectually honest. So what I said was grounded in facts. And what I'm saying doesn't mean that the rural man did not make significant contributions in politics. We can even go back to the initial phases of introduction of socialist Marxist doctrine in Grenada. And we understand the significant contributions that the guys from the North made, that the guys from St. David's made. They were foundational in that sense. But guess what? Probably it's because of location. Guess what happened? Probably it's because of location. Probably because St. George's being the center of administration and bureaucracy, the people who are closer to that center of administration and bureaucracy have an edge. So that is why you saw in some respects the whole socialist Marxist movement got hijacked by sudden socialist Marxists. Some of them were recent expatriates. Some of them would have been called JCBs, okay? Because many of them had just come back from university and so on. But ultimately, they were able to get a control and became the sort of headquarters of socialist Marxist doctrine in Grenada. Then let's look at the post-revolutionary time. When that was dissolved, let's look at the guys who got involved and who got a piece of the cake, so to speak. Again, you see a similar trend. And then in the late 80s, early to mid-90s, you saw again another set of expatriates who would have gone probably to socialist Marxist countries and would have returned to Grenada and got involved in politics. And some of them might have went to Western countries too, because there was a little cooling off after 83. And then you see, as I said, late 80s into the early 90s, mid 90s, they all came back. And again, it was no mystery that the socialist Marxists would have found a home in the NDC. And the more conservative, okay, the more traditionalist politician would have found a home in the NNP. And don't get this mistaken or don't get this twisted. It does not mean that there are not conservative elements in what would become a center-left party, the NDC. It does not mean that there are not liberal elements in the NNP, which is traditionally conservative. There are many people in the upper echelons of the NDC, in some respects, would find themselves having similarities with people in the upper echelons of the NNP. But because of the doctrinal character of the NDC, you will find them having to tamper down their conservative beliefs. And so it is with the NNP. There may be liberal-minded elements within the NNP, up echelons, but because of the traditionalist, conservative character of the NNP, in order to preserve that, they themselves have to hide or mask those liberal values. So you have to understand the political context and political development and political history of Grenada to truly appreciate what I am saying about GBSS and PBC boys' involvement in politics in Grenada. Okay? Because they were very active. And again, to clarify, what I said was not a castigation of all GBSS and PBC boys. So I don't want you guys to get it twisted. It is actually a statement about a group of very active, politically involved GBSS and PBC boys from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I was trying to explain how their foundational involvement had consequences that resonated for decades. They might be the first to admit, and I did in some respects believe that they should bear some responsibility for some of the mistakes that were made politically. I believe that in the political history, in the development of the political history, and at the point that we are at, the things that we are experiencing now, we should not be experiencing. We should have become politically mature because of all the experiences we've had, that we should not find ourselves in the dilemma that we find ourselves now. So it's quite obvious. I believe if these GBSS and PBC boys are being intellectually honest with themselves, they might be the first to agree that they did make some great mistakes. So what I was saying wasn't nothing strange. Anyone who knows the political history of Grenada would understand what I was saying and would not take it personal. Again, it's directed to a group, that core group who were politically active in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. These GBSS and PBC boys would admit that some errors were made. And many of these GBSS and PBC boys who were active, they would be the first to accept some sort of responsibility for the impact, good or bad, that they had on politics in Grenada. But I'm saying some of this, the dynamics that we thought would have disappeared by now and there would have been some level of political maturity, is too fresh, is too still at play. And that is not leading us in a politically mature direction. It seems like we're amateurs just discovering politics. So I hope you now understand what I was trying to say. So now that I have gotten your attention, this is an opportune time to do something that I think needs to be done. Now, there are two terms that I want to describe. Okay? I like to call Grenada Spiceland. Okay? And I like to say it in German, Gewürzland. I also like to call our people Spiceman. And I like to say it in German, Gewürzmann. So if you hear me use these terms, you know what I'm talking about. And what I wanted to say is that when that GBSS boy ceases from seeing himself as a GBSS boy, but first and foremost as a Grenadian, that'll be a good thing. And when that PBC boy ceases from seeing himself as a PBC boy, but first and foremost a Grenadian, then he would see his fellow GBSS boy as truly a brother who has been through the same struggle that he has been through. Then he will truly see the GBSS boy as a brother, and the GBSS boy will see the PBC boy truly as a brother. and that age-old division created by the French and the British would cease to exist. In some respects, it's deeply embedded in that Catholic-Protestant divide. You have to understand and you have to recognize it. You may not notice it, but you have to understand that Grenada was fought over 8 times pretty much by the French and British. And the French, of course, were Catholics. And the British, Protestant, or Anglican, whatever you want to call it. So you have to understand that rooted in the psychology, there is some sort of divide. But you have to break the divide. And the only way you break the divide is to see your fellow man, first and foremost, before anything else, as Grenadian. You have to understand together you've had the same experiences. Together you've struggled. Together you have fought the same enemy. And together you would live and die. Now this is extremely critical in the current climate in the world. There's absolutely no room for divide. There can be healthy competition, but there cannot be, should not be tolerated, negative or unhealthy competition. Because the country will self-destruct, and those ravenous wolves who are looking on will pounce on your division. So in some respects, you have to see and understand that your survival depends on you seeing each other as brothers and sisters, ultimately. And when you see yourselves as brothers and sisters, as Grenadian first and foremost, then you will not sit back. Then you will see beyond party, okay? You will not sit back and allow any party to devour the coffers of the treasury. You will not sit back and allow any party to use public funds for private investment. You will not sit back and let any party use funds allotted for projects and use those funds recklessly. You will not sit back and let politicians use the machinations of government for self-enrichment. Because you will truly see, first and foremost, the funds belonging to the people of Grenada. So you will be united in your effort to protect the funds of the people of Grenada. Then all the games that are played with you, all the division that pit you against each other will be no more. You will be united in your efforts against rapacious politicians. And the games of sucking you against each other will cease to exist. But you must understand that there is only one party that can lead the charge in that direction. You must understand, take a look at the name of the party. The Grenada Social Democratic Party. First and foremost, it is Grenadian. And the party does not just bear that name for idle reasons. So when the Anglican high school girl sees the convent girl as first and foremost Grenadian, and not Anglican, or not high school, or not Anglican, or not convent, then you would realize that Grenadian girl from different schools would themselves realize their full potential. Then there would be no force strong enough to break them apart. When the rural man sees himself as equal as a so-called tongue man, then and only then you realize your full potential. When the tongue man sees the rural man as a brother, then and only then you realize your full potential. When they both see each other as brothers and they should come together to protect their brothers, to protect their sisters, and to protect their children, then and only then they'll realize their full potential. As long as we hold on to these artificial divides, we will continue to be second class. When the rural mother sees herself as equal as the urban mother, then and only then there will be true sisterhood. And when there's true sisterhood and they both see each other as Grenadians, then together they will see all their children as one. They will cooperate together to take care of all the children of Grenada. And then truly and truly, we would see no child left behind. When the so-called petit bourgeois sees the middle class and sees the working man as his brother, then and only then will realize our full potential. When the middle class and the petit bourgeois sees the man who's struggling at the bottom and gives him a hand and lifts him up, then and only then we will see and realize our full potential. And when collectively we see and understand that together we have struggled, together we have built, and together we will live or die, then and only then we'll realize our full potential. So ultimately, you should see yourself as belonging to one Givers land. And you should all see yourselves as Givers man. Because it's when you stand and unite under one banner, there's no force on this earth that will be able to break you apart. But you must understand, it is only the GSZP that has the will, the courage, and the strength to get this done. So I urge you that if you share the concerns that we share, then you must join hands with your brothers and sisters in the GSDP. And together, we will realize our full potential, and there will be no force on this earth that would be able to stop us. On that note, good Abend.